Hello, hello. I'm so excited for those of you who have stumbled upon this video. This is a video from my money shift workshop. For those of you who don't know me, I am Eleanor Prisco and I work as a money and mindset coach. And in this day 3 video, I dive deep into getting paid, something that we also want as entrepreneurs and the importance of it. I talk about the importance of understanding your internal set points, getting to understand what you're feeling comfortable charging, the important mindset questions to ask yourself, along with the strategies that you want to make sure that you understand and implement in your business when it comes to payment plans or pay in full. I talk a little bit also about kind of people's reaction to the financial economy right now and what I see happening in the coaching industry. So if you enjoy this content, definitely give it a like, share, comment with me about what you're excited to watch. And if you want more content like this, make sure to subscribe so that you can always be notified whenever a new video drops. Welcome to day 3 of the Money Shift workshop. I am so excited that you're able to join me and start to learn the first steps when it comes to strategy and mindset to shifting your relationship with money. If you weren't able to catch day 1 and 2, I highly recommend you go check them out. Day 1 was all about those first steps to take when it comes to starting to engage with your money, both on a strategic and mindset side of the house. And day 2 was all about debt and learning how to gain a new perspective when it comes to your debt and really start to learn how to drop into being empowered around debt and credit and seeing how you can use it to build a greater financial stable future for yourself. So I am so excited for day 3. This has been such a fun workshop to do. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Eleanor Prisco and I work as a money and mindset coach for women. And it's just been so enjoyable to be talking about, the the importance of our relationship with money. And let me know in the comments if you have already been learning this information even before you stumbled upon this video or workshop, but really starting to learn my relationship with my money is deeply impacting so many aspects of my life. And I want to have a money shift. I want to shift the way in which I engage with my finances, whether that be your personal finances, your business finances. It can have such a large impact on your life. And so today I want to talk about pricing. I want to talk about, income and all of the kind of crazy feelings that can come up around income and how we can deeply have this, tied into our worth and can really create some pretty crazy mindset aspects that develop. So let me know in the comments if you yourself have experienced this of when you are on a sales call with someone, or if you are promoting something and people aren't signing up and you hear that fateful response of, oh, it's too expensive, or, I can't afford it. Right. And you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm charging too much. And then it ties into how you're relating to yourself and your work and potentially your own worth and all of these sticky things that can really come up in business. And that same experience can be mirrored in a corporate position, right? And the struggles that you face of just trying to figure out I really wanted, this raise, or I wanted to increase my prices and it's just not possible. And it doesn't feel like it's possible for me and getting things priced right. So number 1, I want to talk about pricing. I want to talk about payment plans and kind of how to handle those. I want to talk about how we relate to those on a mindset level, which I started to pepper in yesterday around debt. And I also want to talk about really something that's been happening, I'm noticing in the industry with current conversations around recession and people being, in my opinion, very reactionary to what's going on economically. So let me know if you've kind of been experiencing or observing the same in the industry of coaching And I just really want to have some conversations on how do you get right with your pricing? How do we make sure that you follow your own guideposts here and you actually start getting paid? So let's dive in. So number one, I want to talk about how deeply we can tie pricing to something that's outside of ourselves, right? So a lot of times when people get started with their own businesses, they look around or they've maybe started working with a coach and they look at what the coach is charging or they look at what other people are charging and then they're like, okay, that's where I need to be. Or they're like, oh, well, I desire to have 10K months. So therefore, and I have capacity for 5 clients. So it's like, oh, I just need to sell 2K packages, right? 2K a month packages. Or they don't actually, and let me know if this is your experience, because it certainly was mine, right? When I started out, I had a coach when like I was not selling or figuring out the whole sales aspect, like the response was, oh, your prices are just not high enough, right? And the reason why you haven't sold is because your subconscious knows that your prices aren't high enough and they're not going to be able to support you well enough. So like you need to just increase your prices. Here's my problem with this strategy. This left me spinning for years of trying to find the right offer, constantly be willing to like change my pricing to whatever whim I thought was right in the industry and not necessarily be in alignment with my pricing and have it be something that my nervous system was regulated towards. And I feel like a lot of the coaching industry really pushes you to commit to a price that is outside your regulation, your nervous system regulation, right? And so being regulated to a lower rate is not a problem. But I think something that I did not do in my own entrepreneur experience for the longest time was really look at what my internal set points were when it came to figuring out my pricing and then being like, oh, okay, like this is what I need to figure out. And this can be the same also for, you can take the same exact exercise that I'm going to talk about, this mindset exercise, and apply it to a corporate job, right? So the thing is I graduated college. I then served in AmeriCorps. And if any of you are familiar with AmeriCorps, you make very, very little money. You're living pretty much off of a stipend and food stamps. And then I went into nonprofit. So in the nonprofit job, I was making about 40K a year. And that was 1 year out of college. And then on top of that, what my historical experience had been financially growing up was, kind of lack and struggle. My mom worked in school districts. My dad was an iron worker, so a laborer. And like, you can make good money, but like, it's a very like, oh, you could be employed, the job ends, and then you don't get a job for a while. And so I was regulated to a lot of dysregulation around financial stability, right? So having things be unstable actually is what felt regular to me. And let me know if you resonate with that experience from how you grew up, right? Doing this work of discovering your money story and discovering your money history can be really helpful in understanding maybe why you do what you do in your business, in your pricing. And that's definitely something that I work with my clients around and that we talk through in our communities, right? Like your money story, what you're regulated to, what it feels like historically to have more than enough or not enough, right? And just being in this state of, oh, this is what actually feels regulated. And so when I started to experience financial stability and like I started implementing the feminine finance methodology and the division system that I teach, which we're going to talk about tomorrow, I didn't drop below 5K months and I was suddenly booking 20K in revenue. And it was this really insane experience because my nervous system actually felt dysregulated. Like I felt like this was completely untrustworthy. So let me know in the comments if you resonate with this, if you've had this experience of like, oh, like when I finally got financial stability, right, my nervous system freaked out. And it was like, this is not safe. I can't trust this. I don't know even what to do with this. Like, I don't even know what to do. And so I'm seeing in the comments, oh, this is me for sure. Very conditioned to live in crisis mode. Absolutely. Right. And love, love, love the feminine finance method. So beautiful. I'm so happy. So when it comes to pricing, and I see people get into their entrepreneurial journey, right? They look outside of themselves for pricing, which is completely fine. We all do it, right? We want to see examples. We want to understand how things work. And I found myself doing this in my own journey. And so many of my clients that come to me have also done this, right? They just look outside themselves. They're like, okay, I'm going to have someone else make this decision of what I should price this at. And there's a difference between having a conversation around, oh, these are the numbers I'm kicking around in my head versus like, oh, I don't know what to price this out at all. So I'll just take on someone else's pricing. And the thing is, you're taking on their nervous system pricing, what they're regulated to, rather than asking yourself, oh, what am I regulated to? What is going to help me feel regulated, and what's going to stair step me up to being able to be sold out, being able to actually sell this offer without dealing with some of the, being a fraud or an imposter syndrome coming in and really taking over and taking me out of this launch or taking me out of promoting this offer. Because I think that can happen so easily. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's, visibility wounds. And that's 100% true. I think that a lot of us can have uncomfortable feelings about getting visible. And I think that when you don't have something priced properly and you are just kind of being reactionary towards what people are telling you or what you think the market wants, it's very likely that you're not going to experience sustainable success. You may pop off, you may make that one sale, that 3 sales, right? But then are you then faced with 6 months of no sales, right? And you were like, oh my gosh, what the hell am I going to do, right? And so I think that this was definitely being on the roller coaster of feast and famine was definitely the first 4 years of my business. It's like I'd book, 1 or 2 clients, and then I would have crickets for months on end and be like, and then get down to the very bottom and then need to make that sale, right? This was not stable at all, right? And that's the exact opposite that I want to help people build in their business. And it's how I've going through this process of reflecting on my own pricing and seeing that I was taking on other people's nervous systems around what they were regulated to, made me really realize the prices I wanted to be charging and what actually felt good to me and what I felt regulated to, right? So what does this mean? I think it's important to consider, and this is why I brought in the information around my job just a little bit ago, of realizing what you're regulated to, right? So I was regulated to understanding, okay, I know what it's like to have 40K, right? So when I first started in the coaching industry and I was like, oh, I want to have a 6-figure business right out of the gate, and I want to, build to $1 million, and I want to have these 6-figure months, and I want to be having 40K months and just blow this all out of the water. We were talking about hitting 40K in 1 month when all my nervous system had ever known was having 40K in an entire year, right? That is not to say that you can't expand your nervous system. It's the exact work I've done again and again for myself and what I've supported my clients doing. And right, it's important to take into consideration where your nervous system is at now. And what I always recommend is stair stepping your way up to pricing that is going to regulate your nervous system to know that it's safe to expand like this, which I think is such an important aspect of shifting our relationship with money, right? Because when we actually trust that expansion can happen and that it's safe, we can start to experience peace. We can start to enjoy our spending. We can start to trust that it's going to be okay, right? You are able to combat those beliefs that there's never enough, right? Because when you are blowing your nervous system out by making that big sale and then just going in this feast and famine mode, you do experience there not being enough, right? You suddenly have a lot and then you suddenly don't. And it's this huge feeling of like, oh my God, I'm destitute and I need to depend on others, to like, oh, I can totally take care of myself and I'm independent. And it's like, we want to actually eliminate that scarcity mindset and build financially stable futures. And so we do that when we take into consideration our internal set points around income, around getting paid. And so what I realized was one of the first intentions or financial desires or financial goals, right? We've talked about language in day one. I like to say financial desires. I have a lot of goal trauma around those early years of my entrepreneurial career. And so saying desires feels a lot more turned on and juicy for me, and it feels exciting and delicious versus, goals I can feel like really resistant towards these days. And I recognize that about myself. This is something I'm working on 100%. And we all have goal trauma around different things that we've set out to do. Let me know if you've ever heard of goal trauma or if you're suddenly like mind blown right now, in the comments. So the whole thing is, right, is that when we actually take into consideration like where our internal set point is, I realize like, oh, okay, I actually just need to replace my 9-to-5 income, right? Because my strategy of entering entrepreneurship was I quit my job with absolutely no plan. I didn't even know that I was going to get into coaching. I just knew I didn't want to be at my job anymore. I had a good amount of savings, more savings than I ever, thought I could have at the time. And it really wasn't that much. But again, as I was regulated to lack, it felt like a lot of money at the time. And so I was like, okay, I am leaving my job. I don't have a complete plan. I know I want to do some kind of work with money and financial management, but I have no idea where I want to go. I just know that I can't be here anymore because I was so unhappy. And that's not necessarily the path I would recommend to take when starting entrepreneurship. I think that my nervous system probably could have been a lot more regulated by having a job and building my business up and figuring things out. And it is the path that I took, and I gained a ton of information on that journey, right? Which has led me to this place today. And so the thing here is, right, is that like I realized like actually my first desire should be just replacing my 9-to-5 income. And when I shifted my intention to that of like, I want financial stability and I just want to replace my 9-to-5 income, that then happened within 6 months, right? I think maybe 5 actually. So it's like, when you actually check in with your nervous system, when you start to know yourself and your own relationship with money and your own money story, and you don't judge yourself for what you discover when it comes to that pricing, because there was definitely a lot of resistance I felt when I started to look at my money story and I started to reflect on where my internal set points were for income. Like I was pissed, I was upset. I was like, why do I have to be this way? Like, what's wrong with me? All of these things, right? Part of the journey. But when I finally was like, you know what? All of that doesn't matter. I'm on my journey. My journey is all that matters. And I can meet myself with unconditional love and compassion. I can understand the truth, capital T, of the matter of where we're at, and that this can change. Again, going back to some of the main pillars of the feminine finance methodology, adaptability, right? Adaptability also coming up in your mindset of like, well, this is where we are. This is where we're starting, but that does not mean I will always be here. And so meeting myself with that unconditional love and compassion for where I was at in my internal set points, and being able to have it mean nothing about me, right? Having it mean like, oh, I am allowed to have this as my internal set point, and I will grow, right? I will expand this internal set point to have more, right? Which I then now have done year over year, right? It's like, oh, okay, like that then led to nothing below 5K a month in revenue, and like has only grown where, we're past 10K months, right? And sometimes we dip a little low on that, but like now we're working our way towards those 15 and 20K months. And so I think that there is a lot to be said when it comes to expanding our nervous system, because I think a lot of coaches out there in the coaching industry, they make these like big shiny promises of, oh, well, like just increase your prices and you'll finally book that client. And maybe it will take you 6 months, 9 months, 2 years, whatever it might be, but you'll finally book that 10K client, that 20K client. And the thing is what I want to ask you is, are you going to book a second one, right? Because yes, you got yourself to that tipping point. You got yourself to the point of, oh, I booked that huge white knight client, right? Because that's what you've been holding on to. And the thing is then are you going to be able to do it again? Because what I'm all about with my clients is I want them to have sustainable success. I want them to continue making sales. I want them to reaffirm to their nervous system every single month that they can make sales. And I think that when we're not willing to accept ourselves where we are and expand from there, I think it can create a lot of challenges in our stability of our business, right? And what we receive in income. And so I really want to encourage you, if you've been struggling with your pricing, to do this exercise, to take a look at, okay, what is the most I've made in a year, right? Okay, that is where my nervous system is regulated. And can that mean nothing about me? And can I instead be able to set that as my first financial intention in my business, right? And be able to receive that from my business and know that it's going to be okay. And then just go a little above that, right? Be willing to be oh, okay, maybe your internal set point is 40, like where I was. Can you be at 45? Could you be oh, I'm going to go for 40. I'm going to go for 42. I'm going to go for 44, 45. Is there spaciousness for you to just increase a little bit, right? And then this goes to when you think about what you're charging for whatever it is you're selling, whether it be a product, one-on-one coaching, a group program, if your immediate instinct that you don't want to tell anyone of someone handing you that cash straight out is to push that money away, that price may be outside your internal set point, and that's okay, right? And I feel like a lot of people are not willing to say this in the coaching industry, to be I want you to question your pricing. I want you to reflect on if it is set to be a regulated price to your nervous system. And then what I want to encourage you to do is to see, okay, well, what price actually feels like there's no way, right, that if I sold it for this, it would feel absolutely good. I can 100% sell this thing like the back of my hand. And I feel 100% confident, because that's what I did. That was the thing. That's when I launched Money School, which has now become part of Money Academy. And that's when I launched Money School, and I set it at $1,111. And I was this is a 3-month course. I'm going to be teaching them all about how to manage their personal finances. I know this content like the back of my hand. This feels like a brilliant price. I set payment plans. I had a pay in full. It felt so good. And I felt like it was something that I absolutely could sell no matter what. And so it was okay, that's what felt good to me. Were there other people selling similar group programs for $3,000 around me? Absolutely. Did I want to compare myself? 100%. However, what I chose to do instead was refocus my energy on, wait a minute, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm building for myself, and I'm focused on building financial stability. All I desire is financial stability. I want financial stability and consistency. And that's what I kept reaffirming to myself again and again and again. And so it was by choosing to do this reflective work, right, and implementing my division strategies, which is a version kind of based off of Profit First, which we're going to be talking about tomorrow, that led me to actually be able to support myself, right? To not only get paid by clients, but to be paying myself, which we're going to talk about tomorrow. But I really, really want to be inviting you into having your prices mean nothing about your worth, being willing to start where you are and just go a little bit above that, right? Because I think at the time I was okay, this is $1,000 product. And I was okay, can I just add on $111? Am I willing to just add on $111? And I remember what I did. I felt that it was 1,000. I sold it for 11.11 early bird, and then it went up to 12.12 after early bird. And that 12.12 felt like a stretch. And what's hilarious is that more people signed up during the 12.12 than the early bird. And so it was like, even giving yourself permission that like, oh, I'm going to sell it for 12.12, and that's a stretch, and that's like a brag. That is me triumphing. That is me expanding my nervous system. And so this is where I really was willing to get honest about where I was at in my income, internal set points, where I was at with my pricing. And then being willing to just stair step myself up throughout my business and create greater and greater stability with my clients, with my group programs, with my one-on-one pricing and all of that. So if you are in your own business, I highly recommend you do this exercise and then really start to look at, okay, what is the price that feels like I absolutely could sell it for this? And then just push yourself a little bit higher than that, right? Because we want to work on that expansion. We want to know that it's safe. We want to know that we can do that. And one of those, strategies in doing that in business is, number one, like I just said, you have an early bird price, and then that's the one that feels 100% solid and comfortable for you. And then you go a little bit above that with your outside of early bird price. You can really regulate your nervous system that way. Number two is payment plans, which I think are an absolutely brilliant choice. And they are something that I think allow people to invest the way that they want. And it also allows you to be supported long-term. I think the obsession that the industry has with pay in full is a very like white knighty obsession situation, like of just like, oh, like a white knight is going to come and save you, right? The knight on the white horse is just like going to come in and save you, right? It's going to take care of my debt. It's going to totally change my financial situation. And it's like, or you could change your financial situation right now by just getting your nervous system regulated to have payment plans and trust people to pay you, right? And to be willing to have hard conversations around money. Like, and I say that with like so much love and compassion, because it's like, you can work and work and work for that, that pay in full client. And then you really need to ask yourself, do you trust yourself with that money to distribute it to you over the 6 months that you're serving that client? Or is it going to disappear within a month, right? And so I think it can be really challenging for people to be highly focused on, doing so much mindset on wanting the pay in full, when payment plans can actually give you greater levels of financial stability and start to allow you to trust your business, start to allow you to trust yourself with money, and start to really show you how you can reinvest in your business, and also encourage you to show up more consistently, right? Because when you have a pay in full client and you get this windfall of cash, and then you don't have another client for 3 months to 6 months or however long, you start to feel dejected about showing up in your business. And is this really working, right? When you open up to payment plans and you open up to people paying you consistently, I think that it can really provide us a different consistency in how we show up in our business. And so I really want to encourage you, if you're not implementing payment plans, to consider it. Or if you're really terrified of pay in full, also take a look at what's going on there. Are you concerned around the commitment level of, oh, someone's paid you, now you're tied to this person and delivering them services? Let me know. So I'm seeing in the comments, that makes sense. Recognizing the set point and work from there. How much time do you devote to this reflection work? I feel like I keep circling back to step one. Yeah, absolutely. So I think like, when it comes to how much time did I spend to this reflection work, I think it was like pretty consistent throughout that first little bit. It was like, I first got clear on what I wanted to sell. And I did a good amount of like tapping and journaling on my internal set point of like 40K, and being like, oh, okay, this is what I'm set to. And like, then just being like, okay, that's the new intention. And that's like, I made the decision. It's like, once I became clear on this realization of the internal set points and like where I was at, I was like, okay, like this is where I'm going to focus. And I'm going to make it mean nothing of just like, I want to replace my 9-to-5 income. And that's all that matters to me. And I didn't like set any other like massive like financial goals other than the financial stability. And then instead of focusing on the number, I was focusing on financial stability every day. And this really did throughout my launch and throughout the first few months of that 5 months where the money came in. Like I would say like I was actually having conversations with myself a lot. Like I was just like talking to myself a lot, like you 100% can do this. Like, you know, people need to hear your voice, and like just reassuring myself that like this was of value and I was setting it at a really reasonable price and it made a lot of sense. And so that was kind of where that started. I don't know an exact amount of time, but I think like, if you can take 30 minutes to journal just on like your internal set point or even tap on it, and tapping, you could probably do less time, maybe like 15 minutes or 20 minutes of just like tapping on your internal set point and better understanding it. And then when you're talking about, once I knew the product I wanted to sell, it was really writing out different numbers and seeing my body's reaction to them, and getting really clear on that. So it's like I knew the product I wanted to sell, and I told myself you don't need to figure out the price until right when you're selling this and you've already put out the event and like it's all happening. And so that's when like I kind of was like, oh, okay, these are the numbers that have been bopping around in my head. And so it's just like, oh, okay, like I want to push myself a little bit above that. And I want to say that was maybe 30 minutes. So in general, though, I think that at this time, I had a pretty dedicated, like either like tapping, journaling, or like spring cleaning practice, which is another tool I use, of like really going in daily. I would say somewhere between, 15 to 30 minutes each day of like really just going into my mindset and reflecting on it. That is the front end work, you know what I mean? Because it's like I can move through these same challenges a lot faster now. And I don't need as much potentially like back end work, if that makes sense, or the front end work. But I think that, if you can give yourself even just 10 minutes a day of where like you journal or reflect on like aspects of your money experience, I think it can be really transformative. So I'm trying to like rewind. I got distracted by the question, which is totally fine. I love seeing the questions in the chat. So I'm thinking, okay, so pricing, pay in full, payment plans, get regulated to those things, understand your internal set points. Okay. Next thing I want to talk about, right, is the challenges that come up in this recent economy and how I've been kind of seeing different coaches respond to this, which I have been finding very, very interesting, right? So I've been seeing a number of things happen in the coaching industry where a lot of people who in previous years were charging high ticket to work with them, like just, and there's nothing wrong with charging high ticket. I don't have a problem with charging high ticket. I have high ticket packages, but I do think that it's very interesting that people are kind of, to me, what I perceive as being very reactionary towards maybe what is going down in the economy, such as, talks of recession, talks of the, coaching industry dying, all of these things, right? And so it kind of feels like a lot of people who have been charging very, very high ticket for their one-on-one or, work with them are suddenly coming out with very much lower, like a third of the price, not even a third of the price, even lower than that, suddenly having packages that are $500 a month or $1,000 a month. And it's not like that's no money at all, but these were the same folks who were charging $100,000 to work with them in a year, right? And so it's, to me, what I see in that behavior and the energy that's coming across in their explanation of these things is it's very reactionary to the current economy or whatever they're seeing on social media of the coaching industry dying. And so it's almost like a smash and grab job. It feels like, oh my God, I need to get what I can while I can. And to me, that reflects a very big scarcity mindset. And that seems very odd to me when there are also people who are toting ideas of an abundance mindset and, everything always working and, all these different perspectives. And so I really want to encourage you, like, I want to use this as an example to tell you that yes, when things shift in the economy, it is important to respond and be like, oh, okay, this is the way in which I want to shift. And like, this is what actually feels better for me. And I want to use this also as a reminder of why it's so important for you to get clear on your internal set points, for you to get clear on where you're at with pricing, because it's going to lead you to aligned pricing, right? Because I feel like folks who potentially are so drastically willing to alter their prices is a question of like, were they ever really regulated to those prices in the first place? Because the reasoning coming out is that they have a lot of clients rolling off that can't afford to work with them anymore. And so it's like, were they ever really regulated to that? And so I think that it can be really challenging when you see these things coming up in the industry, because it can be like, oh, if you're not checking in with your pricing, right, then you're being like, oh, well, I just need to undercut myself even more. Because if you're looking to these other coaches and they're saying like, oh, like I, you know, I need to lower my prices, and you haven't regulated yourself to your own pricing, then you're like, oh, I need to lower my prices even more. So I don't want you to do that. I want you to be regulated in your own pricing, right? And the other aspect that I've been seeing happen here is then keeping their prices pretty similar, but then opening up massively long payment plans. And I am not against an extended payment plan. I am not against payment plans in general. I love payment plans. It's almost how everyone pays to work with me. It's how I invest in all my programs. I've invested with extended payment plans. It's something that feels regulated to my nervous system. It feels really good. And I also think that when you start a business and you're encouraging people, or like being like, oh, there's this opportunity to work with me, and the way that you do it is through this massively extended program payment plan, such as, right, a 12-month payment plan on a 3-month course, or, you know, a 4-month course. The challenges that I think that faces, right, and what I've seen from my own business and what I've seen from my clients and my community, is that the people that invest that way, and from my own experience, right, is that the investment starts to not feel as good for that person, right? Because at the time they saw it as this opportunity for them to be able to afford it. And like, trust me, I have been in that position, right, of finally being able to afford something because someone offered an extended payment plan. However, when you offer an extended payment plan that goes so far outside the container, and then that person, you know, starts to see, like, they're like, oh, I'm still paying off that program, and maybe they wanted to invest in another one with you, or they wanted to invest in another one with another coach, and they can't because they're still on that payment plan. It can start to build feelings of like, you know, just feeling like they're not trustworthy with money, that they, you know, can't trust themselves to invest properly. It can build feelings of like resentment towards themselves or towards the program, of like, oh, did I make the wrong investment? Did I really get the return on investment that I wanted here? And that's not to blame the coach or to blame like yourself, right? What I'm saying is that as business owners, I think it's important for us to consider like ethical packages, right? Like, we don't want to get people into feelings. Me personally, I don't want to get people into feelings of resentment or distrust with themselves on self-improvement, on being able to invest in things that are going to support them and help them, on, you know, being able to trust themselves with money and trust themselves in their investments. I think that when you do an extended payment plan and you're going 2 to 3 months outside the container, I think that that makes sense. I think, like, especially if you're starting, you know, like you open cart and it's the month before the container, technically that'll be 2 months outside the container or 1 month outside the container, and people are going to feel good. They made the investment. It feels good. And so like, if you're finding yourself like being like, oh, the way that I can make this work for people is that I just create massively extended payment plans, I want you to ask yourself, how would that extended payment plan necessarily feel for you? And I'm not saying this is the experience for everyone. However, I do know from myself when I've gone on a very long payment plan, which I think I've done like a 10-month on a 3-month program, like I was literally like, oh my God, when is this going to end? Like, I definitely should have done the shorter payment plan. I should have seen if I could have afforded it. This is just like way too long. I'm so annoyed with this, right? I also did a 12-month payment plan, I think on a 6-month container. And that was too long. I ended up, I think, paying off early because I was like so annoyed with like the payment plan that I was still seeing the money come out. It wasn't like the best investment I had made. Like, and it's not that I didn't gain information from that experience, but I'm saying it almost built up this kind of like, oh, I'm like so annoyed that I made that investment. And seeing that happen again and again, I think can create a lot of challenges. I know also from like the financial aspect side of it, what I have seen for myself and my clients is sometimes when we open up to those massively extended payment plans, and I'm certain this is true for coaches who have these long payment plans, because I know people that have stopped paying on those containers. It's like you open yourself up to, people not paying the payments. You open yourself up, like default on payments, which isn't a problem, right? We can have conversations around those things. We can make sure that we're set up to, send out that communication. But there is those challenges of like, people just leaving containers and not, finishing the payment, and the services have already been rendered. And that's not to say anything negative about the person, right? But it's more like, it was an investment that was potentially out of alignment that they couldn't afford. And that's not a problem. It's just more like that then causes financial, like not distress, but challenges for yourself, right? In your business. Like if you were like, oh, well, I have this 12 months of revenue that I'm expecting because of the launch. And then, 40% or 30% of those people fall off, that's a 30% dip in your revenue. And then you are left, if you've invested in team, if you have, been getting comfortable with what you're paying yourself, you need to make up that revenue. And so I think that there can be a lot of challenges when it comes to, deciding to just be like, oh, well, the way that I make this work is just offer a massive extended payment plan. And then that's how I regulate myself, by kind of throwing the financial dysregulation onto someone else. And I just don't think that that's really what we want to be doing in this business. And so I really want to encourage you, to reflect on your payment plans and as a CEO, right? And to think about like, oh, okay, like what are the strategic ways that I want to approach, making sure that I do get paid, that I don't have to have uncomfortable conversations with people, because they're like, I definitely have been in some where it was like, I offered a massively extended payment plan, their card, their card expired. They needed to put in the new card information. And then they were like, oh, I'm confused. Like we couldn't just put in the new card information because it had been too long. And so then I had to create a new invoice for them. And like, then it was like, oh no, I've paid this many payments. And I was like, no, this is how many you've paid. And like, it can get really messy, right? And so I really want to encourage you, if you're looking to build higher levels of financial stability for yourself and your business, I really think you should consider payment plans. But I also think that you shouldn't, that you should consider, right? I think that you should consider, okay, what is the regulated way for me to do payment plans, right? And that strategically, what I always recommend to people is, 2 to 3 months outside of the container of work is really the max that you should go. And it's what people tend to always be able to pay, right? Because we don't want to be pricing ourselves to a point where it's like, oh, people need to be on massive payment plans to make this work and to be able to afford this. And then they're not able to get the results that are needed to be able to continue working with us, or potentially find the other person that they're supposed to be working with, right? I think that this really helps being a more ethical coach, and it helps, being more ethical in your pricing. And I think it's like, it's going to help you long-term in building that stability in your business. So I think it also prepares you to handle economic shifts. A different way that I am approaching this myself in the Money Academy is that I am doing an entirely new system that I've actually been kicking around for a while, and I've been working my, kind of system up to being regulated around. And so I'm going to share a little bit of that now. Is I am doing a sliding scale self-identified pricing. So what that means is I think it's about 6 tiers, and Money Academy is my, signature 6-month program. It's what Money School has been folded into, and Business Money School has been folded into to now be Money Academy. It's my 6-month group program where you learn all about like every aspect of the feminine finance methodology and how to approach, your money story, how to approach your desires, how to approach pricing, how to approach debt, how to approach savings, how to approach investing as an entrepreneur, right? All of these aspects, and creating your personal financial plan, your business financial plan, so it's tax ready. All of these aspects, right, have been brought into Money Academy, and it's my signature program. And the way that I'm pursuing pricing it right now, because I've always done, a payment plan. I've always had a pay in full, a pay as you go, which is you're paying each month, and then like a little bit outside the container. And I've tested, those extended payment plans, and they have not felt easy or pleasurable to me. And it's something that in talking with the people that did it, it also didn't necessarily feel good for them either. And so I am now pursuing a new way of doing this in, wanting to have people be able to access, this financial education, being able to, afford it and have it feel comfortable. But instead of doing scholarships where there could be like a lot of trauma around that of like, oh, well, I need to ask for money, and people not wanting to ask for money and feeling really sticky around that. And then also being like, oh, well, like getting into situations that they're like, oh, I don't think I can actually afford that, is, really asking ourselves, oh, like, what is this? Hold on, I'm just getting a weird notification. No, we're good. So what I'm pursuing is actually understanding, oh, okay, what would be the way that I think is best to respond to, people being at different positions. And instead of having massively extended payment plans and keeping the price the same, what I'm introducing is a tier system that is a sliding scale self-identified pricing. So what that means is it starts as low as $195 per month for 8 months. Every single tier is an 8-month payment plan. So that means it's 2 months outside the container. So it's a 6-month program. So for people that like invest, right, in this program for July, and we start in August, right, they're 1 month ahead already. So they'll only have 1 month after the container. But let me know if you've seen this before, right, in the coaching industry of someone doing sliding scale. There's only one other client I've helped do this before. And it was, very successful for her launch and her company. And so I was really excited because it's something that I had always wanted to do. And so it was really exciting to kind of test that experience out with her and kind of gain that evidence of like, oh, I absolutely could do this. And it's what feels good and right for me. So it's starting as low as $195 a month. And then like the next tier up is $222. And the next tier after that, I think, is $250. And then the next tier after that is $333. And then the top tier is $375. Which breaks out to the original full price of the course of $3,000, right? So it's the 6-month course, it's $3,000. You could pay in full, or be on any one of those tiers and be paying over 8 months. And so what I think that this encourages is an opportunity for people to choose the plan that is right for them, that is right for their bank account, that isn't going to dysregulate them in any way, in the sense of dysregulating them towards investing in themselves, investing in their business, investing in their financial education. It's not going to make themselves, feel regretful being on a massively extended payment plan later on. It's not going to build resentment towards my my program or my coaching. It's not going to build resentment within themselves of trusting themselves with investing. And I think that I'm really excited to see where this goes. Now, of course, the CEO strategic side of me is that I did have to cap spaces on each tier, right? So there are only 8 spaces per tier, which means except for the top tier. And this means that, like, you know, only 8 people can get in at 195. Only 8 people can get in at 222 a month. And the reason why I did that is that it is very important as a CEO for you to stay financially supported. So to consider and to think about, oh, where do I need to be? And what is the, you know, if I only get 8 people in and they're all at 195, how is this going to impact my revenue, my monthly revenue? How is that going to impact how I show up in this container and what that looks like? And making sure that, like, I'm continuing to experience financial stability, because that's what building a business is all about, right? Getting the financial freedom, getting the freedom in general, but then also being able to financially support yourself. And so I think that that's super, super important. And that's something that we don't always consider when it comes to our businesses, right? And so that's what I really wanted to share today. Let me know in the comments if you have seen some of this sliding scale popping up. I have not seen anyone else doing this except for the one client I worked with last year to build that system out. And I'm really, really excited to be implementing it in my business and giving an opportunity to try out this new model and see what it's like, because I think that a lot of times the coaching industry is like, well, you either have it or you don't, and you need to put it on a credit card and you need to kind of like go into debt and you need to like be willing to risk it on yourself and all of that. And like, I get that. And I understand that even some of my pricing may still be at that state for some folks. And I think that we like don't need to be promoting people to, you know, mean their investment in themselves or investment in a program directly relates to how much they believe in themselves. And so you know, I'm really excited about this new way and opportunity to work with me in Money Academy, and, you know, pursuing this sliding scale opportunity and like seeing like what the results are, right? Because I do think that this, like, you know, the entrepreneurship is all like a big experiment, right? It's all trying to figure out what works for you and what is easy and pleasurable and enjoyable. And so I'm super excited to like follow this path and see how it goes. And with that, I hope that you have gotten some amazing nuggets from day 3 that is all about getting paid, right? Like, I want you to get paid. So I want you to start to learn about your money story. I want you to learn about your internal set points. I want you to strategically reflect on, you know, your pay in fulls, your payment plans, seeing what actually is happening in the current economy and like how you can be responsive to that rather than reactionary. And so with that, I will see you for day 4, which is all going to be about money division and actually paying yourself, right? So like, this is you getting paid, right? Today was all about pricing and income, but like tomorrow is like, I want you to get paid. I want you to be paying yourself. I want you to be like tax ready with 0 stress. And we're going to be talking about all of that tomorrow. And so I hope you're able to join me. And with that, I will see you all later. Bye.